Hmm. So I am just waiting at the moment to give to start exactly at 6. Just wanted to come in a little bit early to see what is going on. One person. That's funny. All right. So it is 6 o'clock now, and I am a firm believer in starting on time. Uncle Jasineb, peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. This is once again the Cosmocentric Mystic. Tonight, coming at you with a lesson to share. It's a little bit different than what I've done recently, because normally I'll do, critique on things. But what I'm going to do tonight or today for you is I am going to give you a brief rundown on how to read and to study the Medu Neter, or the basic hieroglyphs in ancient Egypt. And so this is going to be a class. This is going to be a series of lectures. I'm going to take it step by step, and I'm going to go fairly slow. So you're not going to understand how to read all of the glyphs from this one class alone. However, you will get a basic understanding, and if you follow along in this lecture series, by the end of it, you and I will have both grown from this. I put the link up in the chat for anybody who really wants to come in and then kind of shed more light on this. This is why this is called the Medu Neter Study Group, because I've learned from master teachers, but I am not yet a master teacher myself. And so I hope you enjoy, learn from this. If you're interested in studying the language, this will help you grow. This will help you know. This will help you learn. And so without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. Then I hope you can see this. I'm going to wait to see if you can see this right now. Hold on one second. All right. So just give me one moment. All right. So this is the intellectual heritage that I come from. So I learned from this is me, Priest Amaku Ahun. I learned from Dr. Mario Beatty at Howard University in 2012, a little while ago, but still okay, you know. And Dr. Mario Beatty came to Howard because he wanted to teach our people how to read the Medu Neter. He came from the Chicago Institute of Middle Eastern Studies, which is like the premier institute in the United States to study the Medu Neter, our ancient Kemet. Dr. Mario Beatty himself learned from Dr. Theophile Obenga, who, along with Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, back in the 1970s World UNESCO Conference, proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the ancient Kemetic civilization was Black, was an African civilization. Proved this through proved this through DNA, proved this through cultural connections, and proved this through linguistic connections. And so this was Dr. Theophile Obenga. Now, these are master teachers. I am simply a student that learned from them, learned from Dr. Mario Beatty, and believe that it is necessary to share this knowledge to the best of my ability. Hopefully, those brothers and sisters that tune into this benefit from it, and we'll move on from there. So, why study? First of all, it's our cultural, intellectual, and spiritual heritage to study great African cultures of the past and the present. So this offering is made for the ancestors as well as the community at large. It's for any person interested in studying and learning more about ancient Kemet. It's an opportunity to be able to access our ancestral knowledge. There's something about understanding ancient Kemetic concepts and then connecting them to current concepts of spirituality, looking at the way our ancestors moved and the civilization that they created that stood for thousands of years. There are some critiques to be had of the civilization, even some serious critiques that I have, like the majority of the civilization didn't read or write. You know, the Medu Neter was, you know, saved for the scribes of ancient Kemet, which was a very small percentage of the population. However, it was our greatest civilization, and it existed without much. I mean, there was inequalities in the civilization. Of course, that's in all groups, but it sought to achieve a state of peace and balance and maintain that for thousands of years. So somebody who lived in 2600, you know, BC, pretty much. If you were a teacher, if you were a farmer in ancient Kemet in 2600 BC, your life in 1600 BC was relatively the same. So it was able to create a civilization that lasted thousands of years and that nourished the people inside the civilization. That's why there was really no real major upheavals, and all of the big upheavals that came to ancient Kemet came from the outside, came from invading forces. And so it's also an opportunity to be able to access our own ancestral knowledge without having to go through colonizing, thieving mediators, for all the good, though, they have done. So if you've ever visited the Manhattan Museum of Antiquities, the Brooklyn Museum, you would be able to go up there after learning this information. You would be able to go up into the museum yourself, look at the glyphs, and be able to read them for yourselves. So this is the benefit of taking this class. And so it is our classical civilization. It is our African classical civilization. And it is incumbent upon us to know it, to study it, to learn it, and to pass it on. So by the end of this class, this particular class here, you're going to be able to understand the basic direction of reading the glyphs. You're going to know the different stages the language went through. You're going to know the basic uniliterals of the glyphs. You're going to know the basic language. And you will be able to read or decipher this here. By the end of the class, except maybe this sign. By the end of the class, you will be able to know what this is saying, so to speak. You'll understand what I mean as we move forward. All right. Now, to historians, the Medu Neter just appeared. But this is because they don't want to give it its antiquity. The Medu Neter existed, thousands of years before it actually came to be written on the walls. What they find is that the Medu Neter is written on the walls of the pyramids, and this is how it is preserved in some of its oldest forms. But prior to the understanding on how to create the stone pyramids, they were writing the Medu Neter down either on wood or parchment, some other form, but the form that they wrote it down in was not as long lasting as stone. That's why it withered away through time. This is why they say it just appeared. Now, it was a living language until about 1000 AD. However, with the rise of Islam and its, religiophobia to other cultures and language, Arabic slowly replaced the Kemetic as the dominant language in the region. Currently, its descendant, Coptic, is spoken in the Coptic Church in its liturgies, which is their songs. So there were several phases of the Kemetic language. Early writing existed prior to 3500 BC. So I was watching Sinetta TV last night, and someone had talked about the earliest writing being in Sumeria, and that's not true. The earliest writing that we have is recorded in ancient Kemet, and we can date it back to at least 3500 BC. But those, when we find those pottery shards, so to speak, we only see the titles of kings and names of people. Really, we don't see, a whole lot. That's the early writing. Then we have Middle Egyptian, right? Now, this is the classical language, which is what we study, and it embodies the culture as we know it. Now, this is the basis for the hieroglyphic language, right? It's the standard. It was the standard for the whole of Kemetic history, right? And that's what we are going to be learning today, is Middle Egyptian. Late Egyptian differed only in grammar. It kept most of the basic script of Middle Egyptian, but differed in grammatical use. Now, Late Egyptian also was right around the time when other symbols, other words were being introduced. When we get further down the line, into let's just say 800, 700 BC, when foreigners were coming into the country and introducing new symbols to represent new sounds, and so there's the conversation. Walter Williams, Young Pharaoh, Brother Sut and Seti, they're saying the hieroglyphs have never been translated. And I spoke with Dr. Mario Beatty. I did a video about this a few years ago, and he clarified this misunderstanding. And he said, in a real sense, they would be correct, because it is a Late Egyptian that has never been fully understood. So the difference is, in Middle Egyptian, you have about 500 symbols to represent their language, with the majority of them being decoded and deciphered, right? But when you get into Late Egyptian, that 500 multiplies by 10 and becomes somewhere around 5,000. That's why Late Egyptian has never really been deciphered, right? But that's not what is taught in schools, and that's not what you learn when you learn how to read the hieroglyphs. You learn Middle Egyptian, which has been deciphered and which has been taught. So, and which can be read. So that's what we're learning. That's the confusion with the story, right? So then you have Demotic, right? And this script developed out of the hieratic script, and it's in the Northern Kingdom. It was mostly used for documentation. Then the final stage, which was Coptic, and it's closely related to Demotic. It was like an evolution of Demotic, and it appeared in the 1st century and was spoken for nearly 1,000 years, right? So those are the stages of the language. You understand? The language is not a static language. We have different stages, and the language that most people refer to today is known as Middle Egyptian. That is the classical language that people refer to, that people read, that people talk about. Now, we already talked about this. So the term hieroglyph comes from 2 Greek words meaning sacred writings. The Kemites called it Medu Neter, meaning the writing of God. And this can be understood because writing is said to have come from divinity Tahuti, which is the intellectual faculty of the divine essence. And so through Jehuti or through Tahuti, writing developed, writing being a way to express concepts and ideas about God, about the world, the divine essence. So the nature of the language. What the language deals with pictograms. They are ideograms, which means they represent an idea, right? So like this is the ideogram or the pictogram of a house, right? And this is a human mouth, right? So these are ideas made into pictures. Just like the English language is an ideogram language, you know, the S represents an idea, you know. A phonogram represents sound. English writing is a sound language, sorry. So like the S represents, the T represents T, the D represents D, so on and so forth, right? So, but ancient Kemites had both ideograms, they had phonograms, and then they had something that's called a determinative. Now, a determinative was a picture added at the end of the word that does two things, right? One, it shows the pictures in front of it are to be read as phonograms and not ideograms. And two, it indicates the general idea of a word. And so a determinative helps you understand what a word means. You understand? So you have the house along with the mouth, which is ert, right? And then you have the seeds here, right? The seeds here represent the determinative. And this means that this is one complete word here. However, this word, the house, along with the legs walking, represents emergence, right? And so you understand this, once you begin to understand and look at the language and really read the language, you'll see that the difference between a phonogram and a determinative, you'll come to know. It's going to take some real study. What I'm giving you here is basic, and if you take it further, you'll be able to understand it. If you really apply what's being shown here, you're going to be able to understand how to read it if you care so much to do so. But it's going to be helpful. So the direction of the Medu Neter, right? The Medu Neter can be written, hieroglyphs can be written in 4 different directions. They can be written from left to right. And the way you tell how to read the hieroglyphs is look at the direction of some live figure, right? The live figure here would be the legs, right? Look at the direction the legs are walking into. And then you would read into the direction that the legs are walking, right? So in this case, I read into, I go from left to right to kind of meet up with the living symbol here. And this way, the living symbol you see would be going from right to left. And then you read it vertically, both ways, left to right or right to left. Always reading into the direction. So if you have somebody, if you have a figure that is facing you, or that is facing a certain direction, facing, you know, left, and you read all of the figures into it that way. That's how you know how to read the sentence that's happening. If it's facing right, you read into the figures. You understand what I'm saying? So let's take this depiction right here, right? Let's look at this this picture here. So the way you would read this is you would look for the direction of the glyphs. Now, if you look at the chick here, this is a chick, like a small chicken, so to speak, right? It's facing the left. So you would read into that, you would read into the figure and going down that way. You read from left to right and down that way. You're still reading left to right. As we can see here's a foot. It's a foot would be considered a living figure here, even though it's cut off, so on and so forth. But it's still going from left to right. Likewise, the figures down here are going from left to right. And that's exactly how you would read these figures. Now let's look at the figures. Let's look at the opposite side. These figures, look at the fox, look at the face, look at the chick. They're all facing the right direction. So for these figures, you would read right to left. And then you read it down, but you're reading right to left as you go down this column. Same with the bottom row here. So those are the direction. That's how you would read when you're looking at glyphs, when you're looking at the walls on Kemet and you see the glyphs there, the direction is very key because you could read it the opposite direction, come up with totally different nonsensical words, and it's going to be wrong. And so it won't be correct. So understand that. Now, whenever there's a figure, the direction, you always read the direction. Like I said, remember, you read the direction of the living figure, right? So here's you have two figures here. They're both facing each other. Notice the glyphs. You read into the direction of the living figure here. So you would read this Dwat in Shekemer Neter. Dwat in Shekemer Neter Henet. So this is Dwat Shekemer Hemet. This is some high priest apparently. Mirt Iwadu. This is a scribe, talking to a high priest, essentially. But you would read the words over the scribe this direction, and you would read the words over the Shechem, or the priest, high priest, in this direction. Now remember, this is a study group. If you know more, say more. You know what I'm saying? I'm brushing up on this again because I figure this is an offering I can do for the community. So my transliterations and translations are a little bit left a little bit to be desired, but it's still okay. Now there are different shapes of the glyphs, right? So you got tall signs, right? Tall signs like the glyph are the twisted reed. Then you have flat signs, right? This is the shape of water here. And then you have small signs like a loaf of bread, our staff, right? Now, the ancient Kemites, ancient Egyptians, they were all about symmetry. If you go to ancient Kemet, you'll notice everything is about symmetry. Everything is about energy. This is my put on it. This isn't the scholastic book, but everything is about energy. You understand? And so when they would write their words, when they would write their language, they made everything have a certain energetic signature. And so in the name Henet, which is right here, this is Henet, right? You have these two tall signs, one next to each other, right? And then you have next these two flat signs. But notice how they're even, they're level with each other. It's not sloppily written. And then you have this one tall sign here, and then these two short signs. Everything is symmetrical. Notice how everything is symmetrical. Even here, everything is symmetrical. You understand? So it was all about the energy that the glyphs gave off. And so they weren't sloppy. Now, you do have some writing that is kind of sloppy. I'm not going to lie with you on that one. But it wasn't sloppy writing. Now when signs are dissimilar and grouped together, they are centered. So this short sign and this long flat sign, the short sign is centered above the long flat sign. Understand that. Now there was a cursive, and that the cursive writing can mostly be found in like documents, whereas the hieroglyphs, and this is mostly in the Pert Imheru, right? Whereas the official hieroglyphic signs are used for more permanent text. So this is the cursive way of writing the signs. Now, cursive was with pen, hieroglyphs were chiseled into stone. So this is hieratic right here, a more cursive form of the hieroglyphs, and it was used for like really temporary documents, you know, like court documents, marriage documents, mortgages. You can find a lot of hieratic writing in mortgages in ancient Kemet. And here's Demotic, totally different. Interestingly enough, though, I would say it kind of looks like Arabic, you know, so I could see how Arabic kind of came around and about from this. I do wonder if there's an intellectual lineage here. So, but Demotic developed around 650 and became the writing of comic documents. Hieratic was religious documents, with the glyphs being used for the monumental inscriptions. So, now Coptic, the Egyptians who adopted Coptic Christianity translated scriptures of the new religion into their own language, right? But because they didn't, I messed up right there, because they didn't want to use an alphabet associated with a Kemetic religion, you know how Christians are, they composed a language that's a mixture of Greek and Egyptian. So Coptic itself has 32 letters. It's 24 Greek letters and 7 for sounds that the Greeks did not have. Now remember though, this is Coptic developed out of late Egyptian. So remember, late Egyptian had 5,000 something glyphs. So whatever, we don't really know what those sounds are. So the earliest attempt to decode the Medu Neter dates from around the 4th century AD. And it was thought to be written by this guy named Horapollo. And it was called the Hieroglyphica. And it was an allegorical attempt to explain why certain images were used for words. However, this work simply attempted to explain the ideographs, why were certain pictures used, not why certain sounds were there. All right, so here are the basic glyphs, right? This is the way it was taught to me. Dr. Beatty would do this. I'll try my best to repeat it. So this is a vulture, it goes ah. This is a reed, it goes e. The double reed, e. An elbow, ah. The chick, the chick, oo. The foot, ba. The square, pa. The viper, fa. The owl, ma. The water, na. The mouth, ra. Then it's like ha, as in head. And then this is k, a ha, ha. And this is cha. This is supposed to be like an animal's belly. This is the animal's belly. And this is k, ka, sa, sha. This is like a folded cloth. This is a durbolt. This is a pool. This is ka. This is like a heel. This is supposed to be like the edge of a knife, and so it's ka. This is an axe head, ga. This is a loaf of bread, ta. This is a tethering rope, cha. This is clearly a hand, da. This is a snake, da, like ja, like da. This is a lion, and this is these are 2 later Egyptian versions. You don't find these in Middle Egyptian. Middle Egyptian will end here. This was the best. This was one of the figures that I could find on the net. So hopefully this is okay with you. All right. So this is how you would write it. So you would start for the vulture. You would start with a line going down, then come over, line down. When you would transliterate it, we'll get into other parts of it so far. Draw that line straight down, circle down a second leg. There you have. That's ah. This is how you would write the feather. E. Straight line down, another line down, straight line, and then a line across, right? For the next one, you would just double that in order to get E. Ah, E, E. The next one is ah. So line up. You're making a square here. Bring that line out. Draw another line there. Ah, E, E, ah. This is oo. quail chick or the chick. Lying like this, sort of like you're making kind of a wild three. Bring it up, bring a leg down, bring another small leg, cross it over. There's your quail chick sign. This is going to be for you that choose to learn how to read and how to write. So whenever you would write this, when you would write this out, because this is what we're going to be writing in later lessons, this is how you would write it out after seeing the glyphs. This is how you make ba. Straight line down, or like a triangle here. Pa, simply a square. Fa, horned viper, squiggly line. When I used to make it, I would make it a little bit different. I would make a squiggly line, and then that's how I would make it. But this was the best representation. I figured I would leave it alone just like that. So this is how you would make ma, but another way of making that I was taught is you would come over kind of the same, but it's a little easier. And then and give him a little plumage, as Dr. Mario Beatty would say. So that's another way to make ma. I think it's a little bit easier than the steps that they have you going through here, but I decided to still use that because it's a lot easier. Squiggly lines, straight up and down. You got this, real simple. This is the mouth, ra. This is like a hypo-style entrance hallway. Very simple to make. I would make it like this. When I'm used to make my signs, I would go like this. Very simple. I actually like the way they say how to make this. This actually is okay with me. But my way of doing it was, and it was still acceptable. So that's how I did it whenever I would be in class. Only a tad bit neater. It wasn't really all that neat. Animal belly, self-explanatory. Or not animal belly, no clue, sorry. With this one, it's very simple to make. This is how I would make it. It's kind of like making an infinity sign, right? Now remember, as you're making these, you have to do it in such a way where you know that you know what you're, well, it would be good to, no, not a good, make it in such a way where you understand what you are translating here as you write this. Right, this door bolt, self-explanatory. I will draw it for you here. I'm starting, I see that's pretty good. The pool. You got to make sure it's in a rectangle. That's a rectangle, just in case. The heel. Nice edge. And temple entrance. loaf of bread. Tethering rope. The hand. That's literally how I would make my hands too. I'm so sorry. It looks. And then the snake. And that's it. So now I've shown you how to read the glyphs. I've shown you the basic fundamentals of how to understand the direction of the glyphs and how to write the glyphs. I will challenge you, for those of you that are watching, to now go ahead and draw the glyphs on this picture here in your own way. Refer back to this video whenever you would like to do that. Join me next time for part 2 as we go deeper into the glyphs, as we learn about the different types of glyphs they are, and then as we learn how to construct words. In the meantime, Uncle Jefferson Ebb, peace and blessings. Hope you all enjoyed. If there are any questions right now, you can go ahead and type them in. Before I leave the stage, let me stop sharing. If it would be nice to have other brothers and sisters here to watch this or to participate in the study group, but in time with time when it is time. I'll hold on for a moment longer. Let's see.